You still don't have a real job? She laughed, tossing back her mimosa like she hadn't just insulted me in front of 10 people. Everyone at the table froze for half a second, but no one said a word. Because that's what happens when your older sister is the golden child. Everything she says is just brushed off as Viv being Viv. I sat there in my usual corner at the Lakeview Bistro, hands wrapped around a lukewarm coffee cup, smiling like it didn't sting. I've learned to do that. Play invisible, it's safer. Vivian always had the spotlight. Ever since we were kids, she knew how to command a room. Dance trophies, perfect prom queen photos, local TV appearances. My parents acted like she farted. Glitter and ambition. Me? I was the quiet one with the tech hobby. The one who needed to be more like Viv. Funny thing is, I was like her, in drive, but my spotlight didn't need a stage. I built mine in silence, as she kept rambling, and about how she was totally pivoting to fintech now. I stared at the syrup trail running down my pancake. She had no idea the company she just applied to, Lumen Data Technologies, was mine. The job she was bragging about getting interviewed for, I was the one who'd see her resume. I was the one who would click approve or reject, and she had no damn clue. It felt almost too poetic. The same sister who used to joke I'd end up rebooting Grandma's Wi-Fi for a living was now desperate for a paycheck. From me. What made it even more hilarious was how she acted like she was doing the world a favor. If they're smart, they'll hire me, she smirked, brushing her hair over her shoulder like she was in a shampoo commercial. I'll fix their budgets in a week. She didn't know that I'd been quietly running Lumen Data for 5 years with my college best friend, Micah. He's the talker, the face in interviews, the one schmoozing with investors. I've always stayed in the background, by choice. No media, no LinkedIn profile, no speaking gigs, just code, architecture, and the company infrastructure. If the company's a castle, I'm the one who built the foundation while Micah polished the gates. No one, not even my parents, knew the I. Truth? Vivian applied to the company under the assumption that Lumen Data was some hot new AI firm, backed by Silicon Valley money. She was right about that part. What she got wrong. Thinking I was still the girl who couldn't keep a real job. She hadn't seen the basement apartment I lived in transform into a penthouse overlooking downtown Austin. She didn't know that the coffee she sipped cost less than the interest I earn in a day. But I let her talk. I always do. That morning she chuckled and told the table, I just can't imagine being in my 30s and still figuring it out. You know what I mean? Oh, I knew. I also knew something she didn't. Her offer letter was already drafted, sitting in my inbox, awaiting one click. And I was going to click it. Not to be petty, not to embarrass her. I wanted to see what happened when someone who always demanded recognition had to work under the radar, under me. Could she thrive without applause? That night in my high-rise apartment, I sipped tea and opened our internal dashboard. Vivian Green, status, under review. I clicked through her resume. Not bad. Some holes. A failed boutique accounting firm. Fired from her last job over budget discrepancies. But she had charm, confidence, and enough know-how to pass. I clicked approve. Micah pinged me an hour later. She's in, you sure about this? Let's see how the show plays out, I replied. I had no plans to reveal myself. At Lumen Data, I'm Ellie, the remote technical strategist who only appears on Zoom, calls with voice filters and no camera. Half the team thinks I'm a security AI bot. I like it that way, but I was curious. What would happen when Vivian walked into a company built from the very silence she used to mock? Would she adapt? Or would the truth eventually shatter her carefully curated illusion? I smiled and shut my laptop. The curtain had risen. Let the performance begin. Vivian's first day was on a Monday. She waltzed into the Lumen Data lobby in 4-inch heels and a tailored crimson pantsuit like she owned the place. That was Viv, loud, confident, unaware she was standing on the bones of everything I'd built. I didn't come in that day, I never do. Instead, I watched her enter from the live internal security feed. She paused in front of the digital display cycling through our recent project wins. I'd written half the code in those demos. She smiled, probably thinking how she'd level this place up. The irony made my coffee taste sweeter. The team welcomed her. She quickly slid into a rhythm. Morning meetings, budget reviews, grabbing overpriced kombucha from the break room fridge like she'd been there for years. Her charisma worked, as usual. Within 3 days, people were already quoting her in Slack. Threads. She's got ideas, someone messaged Micah. Big energy, he replied. Micah knew the whole backstory. He was the only one who did. When I first told him who she was, he just leaned back in his chair and said, "This is either the dumbest thing you've ever done, or the best soap opera I'll ever get to watch? Both, I said. Vivian didn't know that Ellie, the mysterious remote lead who approved her department's budgets, tech upgrades, and hiring plans, was me. She thought I was a ghost. Or, in her words, a glorified AI tool with Wi-Fi issues. I wasn't mad. I was entertained. I watched her present a revised budget strategy on her third Thursday. She wore her confidence like armor, pitching line items to the CFO with this glazed-over charm. And you know what? It wasn't all fluff. She was good. I had to admit it. I approved the plan that night, quietly, like I always did. But then 2 weeks in, things shifted. Vivian started asking questions, real ones. "Hey," she said to our team's controller, "who's this E. Navarro that keeps signing off on our tech grants?" E. Navarro. That was me, my alias on internal docs. I'd been using it since day 1. Navarro was my grandma's maiden name. No one ever asked until now. The controller shrugged. Some senior advisor, no one's ever seen her. Vivian raised an eyebrow. She must be important. She greenlights everything. The seed was planted. That night, I found a system log entry. Vivian had tried to access internal org charts. She'd been blocked by admin permissions. Nice try. Micah called the next morning, trying not to laugh. "So, she's sniffing." I saw. "You gonna shut it down?" "Not yet. Let her look, let her wonder, let her tug on that thread. Because what happens when you unravel a thread? The whole damn fabric starts to come apart." Later that week, Vivian caught a glimpse of my name. A mistake. One of the junior devs copied me on a thread without stripping my ID tag. Ellie Navarro, lead system strategist, co-founder access level. Boom. Vivian replied instantly. "Who's Ellie? Navarro?" The thread went silent. The dev stammered something like, She works remote." I knew that tone, that hesitation. That moment when someone realizes there's more to the room than they thought. She let it go, for now. But I could feel it. That burn behind her curiosity, like a sixth sense tickling the back of her skull. And that Friday, something happened. Broke routine. I came into the office, late, quiet, after everyone else had left, but Vivian didn't leave. Was walking through the lower server wing, checking on a data relay bug, when I heard heels behind me. Not the usual echo of staffers. These were distinct, sharp, intentional. I turned. There she was. She froze. I froze. "Ellie?" she asked, eyes narrowing. I nodded. She took a step forward. "I thought you worked remote." "I usually do." She stared at my badge, my face, my calm expression. "What are you doing in this wing?" "It's restricted." I smiled slightly. "I have clearance." A beat. Then Micah's voice called from down the hall. "Ellie, can you sign off on the AI deployment mock-up?" Her eyes darted toward him, then back at me. The realization didn't crash in. It crept, slow, cold. I saw it bloom behind her pupils. I just nodded once more and walked away. Micah gave her a look that said nothing, and everything. I didn't sleep much that night, not because I was worried, because the truth had finally begun to surface, and my sister, for the first time in her life, was standing in a room she couldn't dominate, not with charm, not with laughter, not with noise. Only silence remained, and it was deafening. 3 days, that's how long it took for her curiosity to boil over. I saw the system alert at 11:42 a.m. on Tuesday. Internal file access request, budget ledger Q2, initiated by V. Green. She was digging. Hard. She'd pulled up a document that wasn't just signed E. Navarro. This one, thanks to a compliance update, had my full legal name at the bottom, Eleanor R. Navarro Green. The moment the file opened, I could practically feel the shock radiating from the 9th floor. Fingers hovered over the keyboard. I didn't stop her. I could have triggered a security lockout. I didn't. Let her see. She scrolled through a trail of digital breadcrumbs, my initials across approval chains, deployment schedules, executive summaries, bonus allocations. Everything. Vivian had stumbled straight into the core of my world. Later, that afternoon, Micah sent me a Slack message. "Micah, she knows me. I know. Micah, should we talk to her?" Me. "No, let her come to me." But she didn't. Not that day. Instead, I found a printed page left behind on the 7th floor copier. My signature. Highlighted, circled, underlined twice. She was trying to make sense of it because in her mind, I was, still the girl who wore hand-me-downs and fixed Dad's old laptop with duct tape and prayers. How could that same girl be the person running the company she just joined? It didn't compute. It offended her reality, and when reality bends, pride cracks. The next morning, I came in early. I never do that. But I wanted to see her face. I was walking past the coffee bar when I saw her. She wasn't in red, no flashy heels, just a navy cardigan, jeans and hair pulled back like she was trying to fade into the walls. She looked up and froze. I nodded. "Hey," she said, voice low. "Can we talk?" I led her to the empty project room, no audience, just us. Vivian stood there, arms crossed, eyes darting like she was still trying to figure out the angle. You're the co-founder," she finally said. "Since day one. But why didn't you say anything?" I shrugged. "You never asked." She blinked hard like she hated that answer. I worked under you this whole time?" "Technically, yes. But you earned your spot. I didn't interfere." She sat down abruptly in one of the mesh chairs, rubbing her temples. "This is insane," she muttered. I waited. Vivian looked up again, something fragile creeping into her voice. "Was this revenge?" "No," I said quietly. "It was curiosity." "Curiosity?" "To see what you'd do when you didn't know the audience was watching." The silence between us stretched wide, heavy. Then finally her mask slipped. "You should have told me," she whispered. "I spent years thinking you were just drifting, wasting potential. Because I didn't fit your definition of success?" She winced. "That hit too close. I wasn't trying to hurt you, Elle. But you did." The words weren't angry, just honest, and that's what finally cracked something in her. Vivian stood up, paced, then stopped and faced me with a trembling smile. "So, what happens now? You firing me?" I actually laughed. "Firing you? No, you're good at your job, you're improving. I'd be stupid to let that go." She looked at me like she didn't believe it. I pulled a folded sheet from my notebook and handed it over. A new project proposal, Lumenbridge, an internal initiative pairing junior analysts with mentors to help them transition into leadership roles. Her name was at the top. Project Lead V. Green. She stared at it like it was a trick. "You want me to lead this?" "I want you to grow. That's all I ever wanted, for both of us." For a second she said nothing. Then she nodded slowly. "I don't know if I deserve this." "That's up to you." Vivian folded the paper and held it close. "Thank you," she said, not with sarcasm, not with performance, with something real. That night, back in my apartment, I stared out at the city lights while emails rolled in. One from HR, one from legal, one from Vivian. The subject line, "About today." I didn't open it right away. Didn't need to, because sometimes the message isn't in the words, it's in the silence after pride collapses, and in what someone does next. Vivian didn't speak to me for 2 days after our conversation. Not cold silence, more like recalibration, like someone trying to learn a new language after realizing they've been fluent in ignorance. I watched from the sidelines, same as always, except this time she knew I was watching. Her posture changed. She didn't swagger into meetings anymore. She listened more than she spoke. When the product team asked for revisions to a budget she'd already locked, she didn't argue. She adjusted. She was evolving. I wasn't sure if it was guilt, pride, or something deeper cracking open inside her. Then, Thursday morning, a note landed in my inbox. Subject, for review. Attached, a polished budget proposal for the mentorship initiative I gave her. Everything was tight, aligned. She even added a clause I hadn't considered. Equity-based bonus tiers for long-term mentee success. It was good. Too good for someone just trying to prove herself. This was someone who gave a damn. I approved it instantly. That afternoon, I was grabbing tea from the kitchen when I saw her. Vivian stood by the pantry sink, quietly talking to Kelsey, one of our interns. Shy, brilliant, but often overlooked. They were laughing, not performative, not filtered. Real. Later that day, Kelsey DM'd me. "Hey, just wanted to say thanks. I think Vivian is going to be a great mentor." I stared at the message. Vivian, a mentor? Hell really was freezing over. But it wasn't about redemption. Not yet, it was about direction, and hers was finally pointing somewhere that didn't begin and end with her own reflection. 2 weeks passed. The project launched quietly under the radar, just how I liked things. HR hosted a lunch for the mentor pairs. Vivian didn't give a speech. She just showed up, sat beside Kelsey, and passed out notebooks with handwritten notes inside each one. I found out only because Micah texted me a photo. Her handwriting had improved. That night, I opened the email Vivian had sent me weeks before, the one titled, "About Today." I hadn't read it then, now felt like the right time. It was short. I don't know how I missed it all these years. Maybe I didn't want to see, but I see you now, and I'm sorry. If you ever want to talk about anything, I'll listen. Vivi. Read it twice, no excuses, no dramatics, just to start. That weekend, brunch rolled around again. Same cafe, same dark wood chairs, same smell of vanilla waffles in the air. But something was different. Vivian arrived in a soft blue blouse and flats. Minimal makeup, no entourage. She hugged our mom without flair, greeted our uncle with a genuine smile, and then sat beside me, not across. That never happened before. She didn't interrupt. She didn't grandstand. She just listened as I told Dad about a new educational AI platform we were prototyping. He didn't fully understand, of course, but this time, he nodded and asked questions. Real ones. And Vivian didn't mock a single answer. When dessert came, Uncle Martin turned to me and joked, "Still doing that computer code thing, huh?" Vivian didn't even blink. She set down her fork and said, "Actually, Elle built a system that predicts market shifts faster than half the firms on Wall Street." The whole table looked at her, then at me. I nearly choked on my espresso. "Just saying," she shrugged, eyes on her napkin. "Takes a genius to do that. I couldn't even debug my calendar app last year." Everyone laughed, but it wasn't the usual laugh at my expense. It was a laugh that welcomed me in, a laugh that said, "We see you now." Later, as we left, Vivian walked beside me instead of ahead. "Hey," she said quietly, "that AI thing you mentioned, could it work in schools?" "It's designed for that," I replied. "You ever think about partnering with nonprofits?" "All the time." She hesitated. "If you ever want someone to help with the budget modeling for it, I'd love to." I turned and studied her. For a second, she wasn't asking to impress. She was offering. I nodded. "I'd like that." We walked the rest of the way in silence, but this time it felt full. Not the awkward kind of silence where resentment simmers, the kind that grows things, the kind that holds the space for something better. The 5th anniversary gala for Lumen Data was set in a glass hall overlooking Lady Bird Lake. Crystal chandeliers sparkled like stars hung from scaffolding. Waiters moved like shadows between white linen tables, balancing trays of champagne flutes. Stood in the dressing room staring at myself in the mirror. Black dress. Clean lines. Understated makeup, nothing flashy. I looked like someone who belonged in the room outside, but I didn't feel like I did. Micah peeked in, adjusting his cufflinks. "You good?" "Nope." He grinned. "Too late. You're already on the program." I swallowed hard. "Why are we doing this again?" "Because you've hidden long enough," he said gently. "And it's time they knew who built this place." I nodded, not convinced. Out there in the ballroom, 300 guests were settling into their seats. Investors, clients, our team, my parents, even Vivian, especially Vivian. Micah walked on stage first. He was built for it, smiling effortlessly, telling stories about starting the company in his mom's garage, making jokes about server crashes and vending machine dinners. Then he paused. "And now," he said, eyes scanning the crowd, "you're about to meet the person without whom none of this would exist. The one who wrote the backbone of every system you've ever used. The architect of everything we've built. My co-founder, my sister-in-arms, Eleanor Navarro Green." The room went silent. I stepped out into the light, and 300 heads turned, flashbulbs popped. Gasps echoed softly. Somewhere near the back, a champagne glass hit a table too hard. I walked slowly to the mic. My palms were sweating. "Hi," I began, my voice amplified but quiet. "I'm Eleanor. I guess, for most of you, this is the first time you've actually seen me." A ripple of warm laughter spread through the audience. Not mocking, just surprised. I exhaled. "I'm not a public person. Never have been. But tonight I wanted to show my face. Not for praise, but because the people in this room deserve to know the whole story." I spoke about the early days, about algorithms built in borrowed apartments, about nights spent debugging code until dawn, about believing in data, in integrity, in building something that mattered. People clapped. Some stood, but the only person I looked for was Vivian. She stood frozen near the back of the room. No makeup. Simple dress. Hands clenched around a full glass she hadn't sipped once. Her eyes locked on mine, wide, stunned, blinking like she was seeing a ghost wear her sister's skin. I looked away before I cried. After the ceremony, I slipped outside to the balcony. The city shimmered across the lake. I needed air, space, a moment without eyes on me. Footsteps approached behind me. "Vivian." "Wow," she said. I didn't answer. That was, I don't have a word for it. "I never wanted this," I said softly. "I was okay being the invisible half." She stepped beside me, gripping the railing. "But you're not invisible. Not anymore." We stood in silence. Wind ruffled the edge of her dress. "I feel stupid," she admitted. "All those years I made fun of you, and you were building a damn empire." I didn't flinch. I wasn't doing it for validation. I know, she said, and that's what makes it worse. I turned to her. What do you want from me, Viv? Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but something raw. Naked. Nothing, she whispered. Just the chance to stop being the sister who never really saw you. That hit harder than anything she could have apologized for. We said nothing else. She didn't hug me. I didn't cry, but I think in that quiet space between us something broke and something else began. The rest of the evening was a blur. Handshakes, congratulations, people asking how I stayed hidden so long, but I barely heard them, because in the corner of the ballroom, my sister stood with her hands folded in front of her, listening as one of the interns explained a new analytics module with nervous excitement. Vivian smiled, not to impress, just to listen, and for the first time, I felt seen. Not by the cameras, not by the applause, by her. 1 week after the gala, I got a message. Not an email, not a text. A handwritten note. Folded into a navy notebook with silver ink edges, left on my desk like a quiet whisper. Eleanor, thank you for giving me a place in the world you built. I thought. I was always the star, but you were the galaxy holding it all together. No more pretending, no more noise. I see you, and I won't unsee you again. Vivian. Underneath the note was a flash drive. Labeled simply, Project GLOW. I plugged it into my laptop and opened the file. Inside, a fully built-out budget, market research, and a proposal for a partnership initiative, Lumen Data's first public educational program. Aimed at underfunded schools, free tech literacy, built from our AI platform, fully scalable. With her name at the bottom, Vivian Green, Program Director. I stared at the screen, and for the first time since all this began, I let myself cry. Not from pain, from relief. Because sometimes the biggest revenge isn't power, it's growth. Not shaming someone, it's watching them rise into someone worth standing beside. I approved the program the next morning. Fast forward 6 months, Project GLOW launched to national attention. Headlines praised Lumen Data's new frontier in social tech. Vivian stood on stage with a group of public school principals, speaking without ego, without flair, just clear passion. And not once did she mention herself. But she did mention me. My sister taught me that quiet isn't weakness, she said, voice steady. It's the foundation real things are built on. I watched from backstage, didn't need to be out front. Not anymore. Later, our mother sent me a picture from her living room, a printed article taped to the fridge. My name in the headline. She never used to save things like that. At the next family brunch, something happened that I'll never forget. Uncle Martin, who hadn't updated his opinions since the 90s, leaned back in his chair and asked, So, Eleanor, when do you sleep? You're running a tech empire and saving the country's school system now? I opened my mouth to laugh it off, but Vivian beat me to it. She makes it look easy because she's always been 10 steps ahead, she said, setting her coffee down. We were just too loud to hear her footsteps. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The entire table went quiet. Then, applause. Not dramatic. Not forced. Just the sound of people realizing they'd been clapping for the wrong person their whole lives. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. That moment was my answer. That night, I walked into the office to sign off on our next quarter budget. Same as always. After hours. Lights low. When I opened the door to the boardroom, I stopped cold. The wall had changed. Where once there was a blank space above the whiteboard, a new plaque had been mounted. Sleek. Simple Eleanor Navarro Green co-founder, architect, visionary below it, in etched steel. Silence isn't absence. It's power without the need for permission. I didn't cry, but my knees did wobble. Sat down in my chair, staring at the plaque as if seeing my name for the first time in years. Then the door opened again. Vivian. No heels this time. Just sneakers, a hoodie, and a nervous smile. Sorry, she said. Didn't mean to interrupt. You didn't. She stepped forward. That quote. It was yours, wasn't it? From your first journal. I found it in that old box you left. At Mom's. I raised an eyebrow. You read my old journal? She laughed softly. Only the parts I couldn't stop crying over. I didn't know what to say to that, so she did. I'm not trying to make up for everything in one moment, she said. I know it doesn't work like that. It doesn't, I agreed. But I still want to show up. And keep showing up. I nodded. And for the first time since we were kids, I reached out and pulled her into a hug. She clung to me. Not as the showgirl sister, not the loud one, not the golden child, but as the woman who had finally burned down her ego just to find The person who'd always been quietly waiting. The next morning, HR submitted her new title for internal announcement, Head of Educational Impact. 3 days later, Micah called me from New York. You two planning to turn Lumen Data into a legacy or what? I smiled into my coffee. Already working on it. That night, I logged off early, closed my laptop, and looked out at the skyline. City lights blinked back, no longer outshining me, just joining me. Vivian and I would never be picture-perfect sisters. Too much had passed, but we were now something stronger than applause. We were witnesses to each other, and in that there was peace. Because in the end, I didn't need to be seen by the world. Just once. I needed to be seen by her. And now that there was nothing left to prove, just everything left to build, together. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.